Hello friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Emily and this is where I love to talk about cozy, wholesome books. And I have some lovely ones to share with you today. Today we're going to be talking about my May reading wrap-up for 2025, and like I said, I've got some good ones. At the beginning of the month, I really didn't think that I was going to have that much. I felt like I was in a little bit of a reading slump and I just couldn't really decide what to read, and there was a week or so where I hardly read anything. But then I feel like once, like the following, like I read a lot of books. Okay, so I thought I was going to have a slump, but then I didn't, and it was all good, and I have a lot of books to talk about. Like I always say at the beginning of these wrap-up videos, I am not counting how many books I have read total for this year, so I won't have a total number of books read in this video. And I will have chapters for each of the different books. It's something I'm trying to do now so that there's a couple that I want to tell spoilers for because I need to talk about them. And so that way it makes it easy. If you haven't read the book, you can just skip to the next chapter and carry on from there. That being said, I'm going to just dive right in because I'm hoping to keep this video 30 minutes or shorter, because that should give me still a little bit of free time before the babies all wake up. So, let's dive in. First off, and I'm kind of doing these all out of order, just kind of as I have my list. I keep a list on my notes app on my phone, and I'm just going to kind of be talking about some books in groups. I read several books in a series. I read several books by the same author, so I'm going to kind of try and group them. So, first off, I read 3 physical books this month, which I am so happy about. Now, granted, this one is very, very teeny, tiny, but I read 3 books this month as physical books, which if you haven't watched any of my previous videos, I am really trying to get back into reading physical books. Ever since having kids, I have just found that Kindle's reading is the way to go, which I never in a million years thought that I would ever be an ebook reader. Like, ever. I have always been a die-hard physical copy book fan. Like, always. But then I had kids. And it's just so much easier because if you have a Kindle, you can just chuck it if the toddler's getting into something, or, you know, you don't have to scramble to try and find a bookmark or whatever, or you don't have to worry about the toddler or the baby grabbing it and eating the book. Like, it's just easier. So I read the majority of my books on my Kindle. But I read 3 books. And for those of you, I finally managed to read this one. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll go from them in the order of, or we'll go through them in the order of like least to like most. I finally read The Growing Summer by Noel Streatfield. And I was really excited about this book because Noel Streatfield was one of my favorite childhood authors. I loved her ballet shoes book. I haven't actually read many of her other shoes books, but I loved Ballet Shoes. It was one of my all-time favorite books as a child. So, this was actually a, like, late at night nursing the baby purchase that I made after I had my first little boy. I was having to be up every 2 hours to nurse him because he was really tiny when he was born. And so I would just be, like, exhausted trying to nurse this baby, and I bought a couple of books, and this was one of them. So I've had this in my library for almost 3 years. We're approaching 3 years, so like 2.5 years. So I'm really happy to have finally read it. That being said, I didn't love it. I really didn't. I was really hopeful. Let me just read you the blurb on the back of the book. Summer will be different for the Gareth children this year. Their father, an epidemiologist, I know what it means, but it's a guy that's researching epidemic illnesses, but I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. Their father is ill abroad, and their mother must go to help him. So Alex, Penny, Naomi, and Robin are sent to Ireland to stay with an eccentric, distant relative. Great Aunt Dymphna is Dimpna is like nobody they've ever met. She lives in a ramshackle house, quotes swaths of poetry, and flits about like a great bat. And then, to the children's consternation, she expects them to fend for themselves. Despite tears and many mishaps, they learn something new every day, and living with Great Aunt Dimpna becomes an unexpected adventure. So, that kind of explains it all. The thing that kind of irritated me about this is that maybe if I had read this as a child, I would have liked it more, but it just was almost painful to read about these 4 kids. Their dad's sick, their mom is leaving them, they've been raised in a very happy, healthy, normal home, where maybe their parents do a little bit more for them than they should, I don't know, but they're suddenly shipped off to Ireland to this great aunt who doesn't take care of them. Like, that was the part that really irritated me, is that she just doesn't do anything for them. Their bedrooms are filthy and disgusting. The whole house is like cobwebbed and dusty and gross, and it just irked me that there was not proper care taking care of the children. They were just left to fend for themselves, to try and scramble to figure out how to make food for themselves, because they didn't know how to do that. Their parents took care of that for them at home. Like, it just irritated me. Like, the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm just like, their parents had no idea what they were sending them into, and it was just frustrating. I didn't really care for their great aunt. I thought she was just obnoxious and neglectful. And so it's just, yeah, like I said, I think maybe if I had read this as a kid, I would have liked it more, but I didn't love it, and I was so disappointed because, like, the cover is so pretty. This is one of the Virago Modern Classics editions, and I love the artwork on a lot of those, but honestly, I think I'm planning to just get rid of this book because I didn't like it. Yeah. I think that's just, at the end of the day, I did not enjoy it. And I had to, like, force myself to read through it because I was like, I'm gonna finish this book, I'm gonna read it and get it done, and then once I get it done, maybe the ending will redeem it and I'll love it. But no. It just was not that good. And I feel like it spent the majority of the book, like, focusing on, like, their struggles to, like, try and take care of their basic necessities, like food and water. Like, the water that's at the place is all like this gross brown water that comes out of the faucets, so they can't bathe properly. There's no washing machine, there's no electricity, like, there's nothing. Like, it is primitive circumstances, and it just irritated me. Like, the thought of my kids in a situation like that, just, no thank you. So I would probably give this a 1 star, 1 or 2 stars maybe, just because I so thoroughly did not like it. And I'm planning to get rid of it. So, but I have read it. Like, that, it feels like a big achievement to have finally read that book, because, like I said, I've owned it for like 2.5 years, and this was one of those books that I bought brand new, which I don't do very often, so it was like, oh, it's gonna be so special, and I was like, oh, it's by Noel Streatfield, and it sounds so fun and interesting. No. Then we'll talk about this one next, because this is a reread for me. I have read this book so many times, and it is so lovely. It's The Making of a Marchioness by Frances Hodgson Burnett, who is the same author that wrote Secret Garden and Little Princess, among many other books. And this is, as you can see, just a very slim little novel. This has like 88 pages. There's like 6 chapters. Very, very quick read. It's about Emily Fox Seton, who is a woman in, like, I think she's in like her early 30s. And she's not very well to do. She's not quite completely poor, but she's not wealthy, so she's like in that weird, like, middle to poor, like, demographic. And she is kind of like a companion. She helps people find servants, she helps people do different, like, secretary type tasks, and she is helping out Lady Maria. Is Lady Maria's last name Walderhurst? Or is that just Lord Walderhurst? It doesn't matter. And then Lady Maria invites her to come and spend a week or so at her country house. And while she is there, she gets to meet some different house guests, and she meets Lord Walderhurst, who is Lady Maria's cousin, and this is just the ultimate, like, cozy, wholesome, sweet, charming. I love it. It's so short. You can read it in just a matter of an hour or two. To be honest, today is June 1st. I read this last night. Like, I had gotten, I don't know, I don't think I was even a chapter into it, and I finished reading it in like less than an hour. So it's a very, very quick read. But it is one of my all-time favorites. If you want like a wholesome, sweet love story, highly recommend it. Emily in the book is just this most contented, happy creature. She just finds so much joy in all of the little things that even though she doesn't have much in the way of possessions or money, like, she just finds so much joy in like the little things, and it's just delightful. There is also a second book to this that carries on the story of Emily Fox Seton, and I have not read that one as many times because I did not know that that one existed until maybe a couple of years ago. So I've read this book a number of times, and I might get around to reading the second one this year, but I'm not sure. Regardless, if you need a quick, cozy, wholesome summer read, this is perfect because it's like in the middle of summer, so it's talking about that. Like, it's amazing. Highly recommend. So, last of the physical books is The Blue Castle by L.M. Montgomery. And this is a book that I have had recommended to me multiple times. People have left lovely comments on my videos and told me that I really needed to read this book. I have owned this copy for a couple years now, I think, and I have been wanting to read it, but I've been very, very nervous about it because one of the things that everybody tells me is that or when everybody describes it, they talk about how Valency, I think is how you would say it, finds out that she has a terminal illness right at the beginning of the book, and I was so worried that it was going to be one of those books that, like, the heroine dies at the end sort of a thing. Like, I couldn't get over my paranoia about that, and so what I finally did, this is going to scandalize some people, what I finally did is I just flipped to the back of the book and read, like, not even like the whole pages, but just like a paragraph or two, and I was like, okay, she's still alive at the end of the book, there's a happy ending, we can read this book. So, this is about Valency Sterling, who lives in she lives with her mom and her, like, aunt or cousin or something. And the Sterling family is a very snooty, very, oh, what are all the words? Like, just, her mom is so mean to her and so oppressive and demanding and manipulative and horrible. And that's kind of how the whole family is. And she is 29, and so she's like an old maid, and they just think that she's just this little nobody who doesn't matter. She's not allowed to, like, be in her own room for more than like 10 minutes by herself. Her mom will come and call her and be like, what are you doing? Get out of there. You don't need to be by yourself. Oh, it was awful to read that first little bit. However, the beauty of this book, and this might be sort of a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear any more about it, let me quickly say I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is probably my favorite L.M. Montgomery book that I have read so far. I'm not a huge Anne of Green Gables fan. It's just one of those, like, overhyped books that I read it and it's okay. But we're talking about The Blue Castle. It's probably my favorite one of her books that I have read so far. Highly, highly recommend it. Slight spoiler, so if you don't want to hear anything, just skip to the next section. The thing that I really loved about this is because Valency finds out that she has this terminal illness and she only has a few months to live, blah, blah, blah. I love the fact that she immediately, like, grasps life with both hands, and she just starts standing up to her family. She starts making her own decisions. She starts saying things and doing things that she's always wanted to do. It's like it's one of those situations where in books or movies or whatever, where there's the downtrodden character, you so desperately want them to just stand up for themselves and like not be a doormat, and like life would be so much better for them. And I love the fact that that happened in this. And so there's some hilarious bits where she is like sort of sassing back to different people in her horrible family, and I loved it. It's got a very lovely romance in it. Like, yes, you all were right. Everyone who has recommended it, I absolutely loved it. Heartily recommend it. I could see myself reading this again many times. So those are the physical books. I'm already 15 minutes into the video and I still have like 15 books. So we're going to try and shorten how much I talk about them. So first off, I read, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more books in the Lady Hardcastle series. I read In the Market for Murder, Death Around the Bend, Christmas at the Grange. Christmas at the Grange was more of like a novella, short story thing, so it wasn't really a full book, but it's a book. And then A Picture of Murder and The Burning Issue of the Day. I'm not going to go into all of that, into detail on all of them. It's just carrying on the saga of Lady Hardcastle and her maid Florence, and they're charming and lovely and wonderful, and I have enjoyed all of them. After reading The Burning Issue of the Day, I kind of was a little bit, not burnt out, but I was kind of getting a little bit bored of it. I was like, okay, I think I need to put this down for a little while and read some other books. So I haven't read any more, but I read the next chunk of that series, so heartily recommend it. It's a phenomenal series so far. I've really enjoyed it, and the mysteries and stuff are wonderful. So that's all I'm going to say about those. Then I ended up reading 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4? Okay. I read 4 more D.E. Stevenson books, of course. And I have some new favorites. And then I have one that's just... we'll talk about that. So the first one that I read was Spring Magic by D.E. Stevenson. And this one is in my top like favorite D.E. Stevenson books. It's so good. It is about Frances, who has been living with her aunt and uncle her whole life. This is another one of those situations where she's kind of imposed upon, put upon, taken for granted. And then she is told by the friendly neighborhood doctor that she really needs to take a holiday. And so she decides to take a holiday. And so she goes to this little tiny town. I can't remember now. I should have looked it up. But it's like this little town in the country on the seaside, and goes there to stay. Like, she decides that she's just going to go to this place, get away from her aunt and uncle, because it's during World War II, so the Blitz is happening in London, so the aunt and uncle end up moving to the countryside to get away from bombs and everything. And so Frances goes to this little countryside, seaside town. It's a little seaside town. And while she's there, she meets these army wives that come into town because there is a squadron, platoon, group of soldiers that is coming to stay nearby this town to do training and things. And so she meets these wives and just kind of gets caught up in all of the life of, you know, being a military spouse and making friends with some of the soldiers and stuff. And it's just, oh, I loved it so much. Again, D.E. Stevenson's writing is just perfection. But this was one that I very much enjoyed. I'm not going to say too much more about it because, again, I don't want to do any sort of spoilers or things, but highly, highly recommend it. Very sweet, wholesome book. Amazing. Then I read Smouldering Fire by D.E. Stevenson. And this one, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I'm not going to say what it was that surprised me until a little bit from now. But there's definitely going to be some spoilers in this section. So I'll talk about it a little bit and then I'll let you know before I'm going to talk about spoilers in case you haven't read it. So this is about Ian. He's a laird of a castle up in Scotland. Well, not really a castle. It's like a manor house. And he just doesn't have the funds to continue to run his manor house. So he decides to rent it out for a few months over the summer. And
that's kind of the premise beginning of the story, because then obviously the people that come in and rent it, there's those people, and there's a love story and a romance and blah blah blah, like every D.E. Stevenson book. I loved it. The descriptions of Scotland and everything, the countryside, were beautiful. It was a little bit hard to read because it involves like a woman with a not great ex-husband, and there's that parts of it that are really stressful and gripping, and but overall it was definitely not my favorite D.E. Stevenson book, but I enjoyed reading it because D.E. Stevenson's writing is so amazing. So it's not one that I will probably be in a hurry to pick up and reread, but spoiler time, so if you don't want to hear it, skip over. The ending. What on earth? Oh my goodness. So, if you have read this book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there is a guy that's a horrible human, and he doesn't deserve to live, and he's terrible. This is the ex-husband. And in the end, Ian, the main guy, his best friend, murders the guy and hides him and gets away with it. And I'm just conflicted because, yes, this guy needed to go, but what? Like, it's in the final chapter where he talks about how, like, he went about murdering this guy and covering it up, and it, like, ends. And he gets away with it, and you're just like, what just happened? So, yeah. What on earth? Like I said, not my favorite D.E. Stevenson book. It was a bit odd. I was like, that's not how it should have ended. That's just weird. So, yeah. The next one I read was Kate Hardy, and this one was okay. Like, this wasn't one that I was like super excited about, and this wasn't one that I was like, eh. It's about Kate. She's an author, and she moves to the countryside to escape her sister and her niece, who are kind of, they're just leeching off of her because Kate has money, and so they're just kind of not being very nice about that. So she moves to the countryside, small village life. The tale unfolds. There wasn't a lot to write home about. Like I said, this wasn't like my favorite one. It was still really fun to read and everything. So if we had like a D.E. Stevenson spectrum, it would probably be like a smack dab in the middle 3. Like, it was fun to read, not in a huge rush to reread it, but not for negative reasons, just because there are other of D.E. Stevenson books that I like more. Then I also read Young Mrs. Savage, which I loved this one. And part of that was because Dinah, our main character, Young Mrs. Savage, has 4 children. And her husband was in the war, and he died just as the war ended. And so she is kind of alone trying to take care of her 4 kids. And her twin brother Dan was also in the war, but then he gets off, and so he comes and he convinces her to go to this seaside town and stay with their old nanny for the summer while he is working close by, so he can come down on the weekends and visit and see her and the kids and everything. And one of the reasons I loved this so much was because there were different parts where it was talking about like parenting and whatnot, and just the way that she was talking about and going about parenting her kids was so lovely to read about. Like, I know this is kind of a weird thing to talk about with a D.E. Stevenson book, but it was so lovely, and it just resonated with me very strongly, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then of course you've got the sweet romance that's involved in it, and her relationship with her brother Dan. Like, they're twins and they've been inseparable pretty much since birth, and so their relationship is really sweet, and it was so charming and wholesome, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really nice, and I can see myself rereading this one sooner rather than later, because, like, for example, there's one part where she's got twin boys, and circumstances. One of them got a shilling for something and the other one didn't. The other one's whining, complaining about it, saying that he should have gotten the shilling as well. And her brother is like, well, just make them split it. And she goes, no, that is, I think it was Matt, or Mark. I think it was Mark. That is Mark's shilling. He was given it. He can, if he chooses to share it, then he can. However, I'm not going to force him to share it, because forcing him to share is not true generosity. It's just being obligated to. And it described it much better in the book, but like that is an example, and I love that. Again, it resonated with me so strongly. I was like, that's true. Like, that's so true. Like, forcing your child to share something with somebody else is not necessarily always the way to go about it. So I really enjoyed it. But then I read Near Neighbours by Molly Clavering. I've been hearing Jen from Jen's Reading Life talk about this one a lot, and I've been wanting to read it, and I finally got to reading it. It was amazing! I loved it so much. So much. So it is about Dorothea, and she is an elderly lady who has been domineered over her whole life by first her father and then her sister, and then her older sister Belle has recently died. And so Dorothea, for the first time in her life, is kind of free from those constraints and whatnot, and so she makes friends with the family next door. It's a widow and her 5 children? I think it's 4 girls and 1 boy. I think it's 5 kids. And they kind of make friends, and it's just talking about their life and the lives of each of the different children. There's romance involved, of course. It was so lovely. I heartily recommend it. It is such a good, cozy book. It's like likable characters and different circumstances, and just all of the whole like slice of life, like the trials and tribulations that people go through, but like the ordinary ones, like your day-to-day trials and tribulations. And it's just beautiful. And I love reading books where it talks about not only like romantic relationships, but like family relationships and how they interact with each other. Oh, it was so beautiful. Please read it. So then let me see. We got that one. I've already talked about that one. Let's talk about Elizabeth Cadell. I have a feeling she's going to be a new favorite author for me, because I have now read 3 books by her. A couple months ago I read The Lark Sings or something like that. This month I read The Corner Shop, which is about Lucille, and she owns a secretary business in London, and she sends secretaries to people for jobs that they need done, like temporary positions sort of a thing. And so there's this grouchy professor that is in this house in the country, and she sent 3 different secretaries to try and find him a secretary to help him with what he needs help with. And they have all left immediately, like within a day. And so she decides to march up there and figure out why he is like going through her secretaries. And of course the tale unfolds, and it's just so fun. Like, there's a little mystery, there's theft involved, like there's it's not even like banter, but like the conversations back and forth between different characters, and the witty way of talking. I just so enjoyed it. It was so fun. Like, I was having to I'm like, all right, I need to like see what happens next. I just wanted to pick the book up and finish it. Like, I was just so excited to read about it. Because then there's a part where she ends up going to France, because that's why it's called The Corner Shop, because every year for her holiday, she doesn't really have a real holiday. She goes to France for 2 weeks and takes care of her aunt's shop on the corner so that her aunt can go off and have a holiday. And it's just, oh, I loved it. It was really charming and sweet, and you've got like the kind of grumpy, I think what they call it in books is like grumpy and sunshine characters in romance books, I think. Again, I don't read contemporary romance, and I don't really get into that world of social media, so I don't know all of the terms that people use, but there's kind of the grumpy professor character, and she's just like so upbeat and like it's really lovely. Please go read it. Then the other book that I read by Elizabeth Cadell is it's just Shadow on the Water. Oh my goodness, I love this book. It is... So, is it Kate? Yeah, Kate is a widow. He cut me off. Kate is a widow, and she has 2 children. They're both grown and married, and her daughter has just had a baby. So that's her first grandchild. And they are living in Buenos Aires. Is that how you pronounce it? And so Kate is living in England, so she decides to get on a boat and go see her first grandchild and hang out with her daughter and son-in-law. Well, on the way, they stop off at Lisbon. And while on the boat, Kate has met these 2... She calls them children, but they're like 16 and 19. Lindy and Rex. And she meets them, and they're going to Lisbon to meet their father. Because they've been living in England, and then their mother recently died in the last like year or 2. This book has everything. It has like that cozy, wholesome sort of like day-to-day vibe in like the language and the way that it's written. It has murdered or attempted murder. It has a mystery. It has romance. Like, it has all of it. And the ending is so cute. It was exactly what I wanted to have happen. It's just, I loved it. It was like D.E. Stevenson and a Golden Age murder mystery like had a baby. Like, that's kind of what it was. It was so good. Like, I was reading it, I was like, I have to keep reading. I have to know what happens next. Like, I just so thoroughly loved it. So, again, please go read it. I decided to read a couple more Betty Neels books because, as we know, I like her books. The first one I read was The Valentine for Daisy. Pretty generic, normal Betty Neels book. It's got Daisy, and she is trying to take care of her mom and her sister, and she was working in a nursery school. Some stuff happens, so the nursery school gets closed, so then she's trying to find other jobs, and of course she's met a handsome doctor, and he finds her a job watching his sister's kids, and it unfolds from there. So yeah, like I said, pretty typical Betty Neels book. Lovely, fun to read, not too much to write home about. However, the next Betty Neels book that I read has attained the height of potentially becoming my favorite Betty Neels book that I have ever read. And it was Saturday's Child, and it's about Abigail. And her mother has recently died. Her dad's been dead for many years. And so she's a nurse, and so she goes to a like temp agency place and finds a job taking care of a lady in Amsterdam. And of course, while she's there, she meets Dominique, who is the professor, Dr. Rich Dutch Doctor guy. And it's just, it was a little bit different than a lot of the Betty Neels books because there wasn't the other woman, other man character in this one where, like the doctor, yeah, no, I don't think there was a single one. In most of the Betty Neels books that I've read, there's almost always another woman that's very attractive and lovely, but like a horrible person. Like, she's really rude and snippy and just awful. The doctor is like thinking about marrying because he needs a wife. And this book didn't have that, so that was really fun. Like, it was always obvious from the very beginning, like, there's only the 2 main couples, or the 2 main people. And but Dominique is again like one of those like grumpy, grouchy, cynical characters, and Abigail is like this sweet, wholesome, like positive, upbeat type of a character. And I feel like it was longer than a lot of the Betty Neels books that I have read too, and I just loved it so much. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this is up up there as potentially my favorite Betty Neels book so far. Like, it was just so enjoyable. But yeah, it's hard to talk about any of the Betty Neels books because they all follow pretty much the same formula, and I don't want to like give everything away. But it was lovely. It has a wonderful happy ending. Sweet, wholesome romance book. So that is all that I have to talk about today. That was a lot of books to get through. Thank you so much for watching all the way through if you did. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about what I read in May. I would love to know if you have any books that you read in May that you thoroughly enjoyed, or if there's any books on this list that you've read. Have you read Smouldering Fire by D.E. Stevenson? Can we talk about that one? I would love to know your thoughts on any of the books that I talked about, or anything bookish, you know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.